and I both know why you're here. You continue to get into relationship after relationship after relationship, and you're like, okay, this next person is going to be different. And it turns out to be the same type of person in a different font. Or perhaps you're on the other end, you have a type, you know the type, but you want to get out of that pattern of cyclically dating the same type of person or the same literal person. Either way, let's unpack. Welcome back, friends. If you are new here, my name is Simone Saunders. I'm a licensed therapist and social worker in Calgary, Alberta. This channel is all about mental health, wellness, and lifestyle. So let's get right into it. We're going to be talking all about attachment, the nervous system, and why we do the things that we do. So for reference, our attachment system is kind of like our psychological immune system. It helps us with social engagement, which means just interacting with the world around us, as well as helping us to perceive danger and safety in our environment. I have a bunch of videos on attachment, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but typically when we find ourselves in a pattern of unhealthy relationships or unhelpful relationships, we might want to take a look at what our attachment style looks like. And typically we might fall into the insecure umbrella of attachment styles. So insecure might look like avoidant, anxious, or disorganized. For a quick reference, avoidant is more push you away, I want to keep my independence. Anxious is more pull you close, I don't want you out of my sight. Disorganized is a push and pull sort of behavior. Typically the most impactful attachments we want to recreate in our adult relationships, not because we want to, especially if those attachments were unhealthy, unhelpful, harmful, but it's more so because it feels comfortable. And by comfortable, I mean it feels familiar. A question that I always like to pose to my clients is, what about this dynamic feels familiar? And of course it might feel familiar in terms of previous relationships, but can you track the farthest point where it feels familiar? What aspects of this relationship feels familiar? So for example, maybe your role in the family growing up was to be the caretaker, and as a result your needs didn't really get met. And that's just something that you grew accustomed to. And perhaps now you have a lot of relationships where consistently you're ending up with people that either don't meet your needs or don't have the desire to meet your needs. None of these things are coincidences. What this concept is called procedural learning. So stay with me. Essentially, procedural learning is acquiring skills in order to execute certain behaviors without your conscious awareness. So that could look like things like tying your shoe. Once you've learned to tie your shoe, your brain and your body knows exactly how to do it. You don't have to think about the steps each and every time. Same with driving or riding a bike. So that also happens with relational dynamics as well. We learn certain ways of relating to people and that just becomes automatic knowledge. So part of that procedural memory can be the behaviors of being a caretaker, for example. Another part of that procedural memory could be when you're around people who neglect your needs, there's a part of you that feels comfortable and gravitates towards that person. Again, why does this happen? Because that sequence has already been embedded in your brain. And you're probably like, okay, I don't want that to be embedded in my brain. I want to be able to choose different relationships. I don't want the relationships I've been having. We're gonna get there. So this repetition happens for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's comfortable. We've already covered that. Your nervous system feels comfortable around certain people based on your prior experiences. Number two could be reenactment. So this is a concept essentially where we reenact relational dynamics as a way to kind of gain control over that. If in childhood we really had to work for our caregiver's affection and maybe we never really got it, we might choose partners who embody those same qualities as a way to finally say, okay, yes, I can achieve this level of affection, I can achieve this level of love. But realistically, whenever we choose partners who might be emotionally unavailable, we never actually complete that cycle that we're unconsciously looking to complete. And it leaves us in a perpetual state of, what am I doing wrong? What is wrong with me that I can't receive this type of love, or nobody wants to love me, or I'm unlovable? It kind of puts us in this spiral of shame. And it's interesting because that spiral of shame is the same spiral of shame that we would have experienced in childhood. And the reason that that spiral of shame goes on is because as a child, we're not able to conceive that our parents might not have the skills to parent us properly, to show us the type of love or support or reassurance that we need. We are not able to digest that because if we did, how are we going to survive? So that line of thinking carries on into adulthood. On a logical level, we might be able to say, yeah, they weren't able to love me in the ways that I wanted to, but on an emotional and visceral level, we still feel like, okay, I didn't work hard enough. There's something about me that's unlovable. And again, going back to that control piece, if there's something about you that's unlovable, then it allows you to have the control in order to change, in order to morph yourself somehow, do gymnastics and just contort yourself into someone who will be lovable. So how do we break the pattern of procedural learning? AKA, how do we get out of these relationships? Number one, notice what's familiar. What is the constant in all of these relationships? Whether that is the type of person, the type of characteristics, the type of feelings that you have when you're with this person. Where do those feelings originate? Think about how you typically respond to your needs not getting met, feeling neglected in relationships. Whatever that constant feeling might be or that constant experience, how do you typically react to that? Another question to reflect on is, what does shame feel like? What does that feel like in your body? That might feel like a pit in your stomach. That might feel like tightening in your chest. That might feel like your whole body is tingling or staticky. Shame is an incredibly important emotion because it tells us that we need connection. How we respond to the feeling of shame is typically to push it down in some capacity or project it outwards. A good way to tell if you're experiencing an emotion from the past versus one from the present is the sense of urgency. So is there this incredible sense of urgency? I need to talk to this person. This person can't leave me. This person can't do X, Y, and Z. Often that can be an invitation for you to be curious about, okay, what is this emotion trying to tell me? And where is this coming from? Once we're more aware of our procedurally learned habits, it's easier to change them. So again, think about tying your shoe. Once you're more aware of exactly how you tie your shoe and what your hands are doing when you tie your shoe, it's easier to decide to tie your shoe a little bit differently. Is it going to be hard because your body's natural response is to want to tie it the same way it's been doing for 20 years? Absolutely. But the more that you pay attention to it, the more that you understand the sensations and the feelings that come up when all of these different patterns show up in your life, the easier it is to point them out and then eventually change them. It's important to also remember that when we're thinking about changing them, there's a lot of resistance that's probably going to come up because the patterns of behavior and patterns of relating to people that you've used for the past however many years have been keeping you safe, essentially. They kept you safe at one point, and perhaps now they're kind of an overdeveloped coping skill, but it's also difficult to say that this is something that keeps me safe and I'm going to let it go. When we can expect resistance to change, a lot of times it can be easier to actually sit with that fear. If you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, feel free to leave them in the chat. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.